Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, and our ongoing study in the letter to the Ephesians by Paul, dated around AD 61, 10 years after his two letters to the Thessalonians. We're going to take a look at the vocabulary up to and through Ephesians 3, verse 5. We've added two additional terms to our doctrinal vocabulary, and we need to be reminded that all doctrine for Paul was soteriological doctrine. It was all doctrine related to salvation, and that's why Paul doesn't have a doctrine of God that just has a listing of abstract concepts. Paul's doctrine of God is a doctrine of God with regard to soteria, salvation. All of Paul's doctrine is reflected off the person of Jesus Christ. All of Paul's doctrine is related to concrete salvation and God's plan of salvation. So his doctrine of God is, of course, the doctrine of predestination. Rather than the attributes of God, it's a soteriological doctrine of God as predestination. And so let's take a look at our updated vocabulary here. And you notice that predestination means elected by God unto salvation. And Paul's doctrine of predestination comes from Ephesians 1 through 7. And it's a three-moment process of first, God the Father elected us unto justification before creation itself, by predetermining his Son to be the way of salvation and predetermining his Son to be the way of creation. And then second, God the Son empowers us unto sanctification with real transcendence from our place with him in the Uranus heaven. And that leads to the sphragizo, the seal of the Spirit. We are sealed in our eschatology unto the eschaton of doxa glory. That is specifically mentioned in Ephesians 1:13. And from this one first doctrine of predestination, the remaining concepts for Paul's vocabulary are abbreviated under the fundamental doctrine of predestination by the Father. So that would be sealed in the Spirit, gifted with inheritance, aligned with Christ, raised up together with Christ, seated in power together with Christ, the before and now aspect of our salvation, the being enjoined in one fellowship, and being born as new from above. And now we've got two additional terms. We've got 10 and 11, and the first new term is cornerstone, or acrogonia ias. Christ is the alignment for the church in Paul's theology, which mediates between being fitted together for God's purpose and indwelt by God's Spirit. We are aligned on Christ. Christ is the cornerstone, or better, the capstone, because we are being fitted together for God's purpose and indwelt by God's Spirit. The second new term we have is mystery, or mysterio, or mysterion. Christ is the apocalyptic unveiling of God's plan of design and redemption. Jesus Christ is the unveiling of the design of all creation and the only way to fellowship with the Father, restored fellowship, is through Christ. He is the design, he is the apocalyptic unveiling of God's plan of creative design and redemption. So that gives us a total of 11 concepts now, but all of those remaining concepts are abbreviated under the first concept of predestination. Eklego, or eklegomai, that is your primary fundamental vocabulary word for Christian doctrine for Paul. He begins with eklegomai, and for him, we'll read this little bit of an insert here to close out that box, the inserted box on the left. The only individual chosen in Ephesians 1:4 is Christ. When we place faith in Christ, we are placed in him and so become chosen in him because he is chosen. In other words, Christians are elect because we are in Christ and He is elect. Only those who are in Christ can be referred to as elect or chosen in Christ, or predestined in Christ. Christ was predetermined to be the way of salvation and the way of creation prior to God the Father's creative act. So that's going to wrap up this additional lesson to our lesson that closed out with chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. And we will pick up next time in chapter 3, verse 6.